Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this beautiful Monday night here in Middle Tennessee. Hope you are having a great one. Thanks for jumping in on the Primetime Show with us. I have a couple of things from the offseason that we need to get to, ranking the best offseasons and where the Titans might fall in the NFL's best offseasons, if in fact you are buying the Titans offseason as being a good one. We will talk about where they rank among the rank and file, and instead of putting a shirtless bird in front of you tonight, I'm instead going to grace you with his rendition of Freak on a Leash, sung by Jonathan Davis, the lead singer of Korn, who Bert lost a bet and had to dress up as today and is still, at this very moment, cleaning the eye makeup off of himself. We are very happy to have you. We are always happy when you share this broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, because the Titans have had a pretty compelling offseason. It is as compelling an offseason as any that I can remember for a couple of different reasons. They had as much cap space, or just about as much cap space as anybody in professional football, and they spent it. They have an exciting young quarterback who we're not entirely 100% certain on just yet, but there's reason to be optimistic about, is an ascending player. They have the bones of a young offensive line that is now grounded with a veteran center who they brought in free agency. And the draft class is not sexy, but it's fundamental, provided that T'Vondre Sweat work out. Now, there's no reason to think that T'Vondre Sweat, as of Monday, June the 10th, won't work out. So, to date, the Titans' offseason has been an interesting and necessary one. But where does it rank among the NFL's best? That is the subject matter that we are going to dive into tonight. So with that being said, share the show around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You guys know the routine. If you would be so kind, because as much as I love you all, I also love seeing new faces and new names in the comment section. So do that, and we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the beautiful people at Zen Sports, who offer you up to $100 on your no-danger first wager. Zen Sports is where you go to get in on all the action. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. And TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Your first workout is free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, no workout ever recycled or repeated at TrueMath Fitness. So Bert and I wanted to do this exercise on the teams that had the most exciting off seasons in the NFL. And we went division by division, basically, and we decided whether there was a team worthy out of each division, each of the 8 divisions in the NFL, that was worthy of saying that team definitively had a good offseason. And turns out not every division was included in this exercise. For example, I don't have a single team from the AFC West in my list of teams that had a good offseason. I don't have a single team in the NFC. Well, I guess I do have a team in the NFC East, but I'm a little hesitant about it. So you'll see where they come out in my rankings. But still, not every team, not every division had a team that had a good offseason, because for what I liked, for example, about the Chiefs offseason and the speed that they added in Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown at receiver, more reliable pass catchers than what they've been dealing with in the last couple of seasons, jettisoning Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That's a bunch of complicated words that I don't know why I chose to say all in the same sentence. But either way, they jettisoned an underachieving wide receiver, and they've upgraded the talent around Patrick Mahomes. But they can't stay out of the headlines for one reason or another. Rashee Rice, his offseason situation, Isaiah Buggs, everything that's happening there, the defensive lineman who had a seizure, all of these unrelated, of course, but still enough bad headlines to where you look at the cost-benefit analysis. It doesn't outright outweigh the football decisions that they made, but it's enough to make you think twice about everything that's going on with the Chiefs as back-to-back defending Super Bowl champions and going to be favored to win a third as long as Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback there. So I've put together a list of teams, a list of 8 teams that I think had what I would call good off seasons. Now, does that mean that they're going to win the Super Bowl? No. Does this mean that they addressed fundamental needs en route to improving themselves as a football team? Yes. So while there will be some shitty teams on this list, the moves that they made make me feel better about the direction that these teams are in, which includes, of course, the Titans, who had a shitty team and are trying to rebuild at this juncture. So, looking at these 8 teams, the question that I'll ask you is this: your Two Rivers Ford take on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. Simply, which NFL team had the best offseason, and why do you think they had the best offseason? Give me your answers in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. We'll talk about it together right after I remind you that your Two Rivers Ford take is presented by the South's most trusted Ford dealer. That's Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet. Quality American-made Ford vehicles and even better savings, especially this month, because in the month of June, they are offering you $8,000 off a 2024 Expedition. You can go test drive one for yourself on the lot at Two Rivers Ford, just 7 miles east of Nashville International Airport. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. So, when I say teams that had the best offseason, who comes to mind? Here's my list. And this is not in any particular order, though I will stack them for you here in a second. Pittsburgh, I really liked what they did in the offseason, the moves that they made to bolster their roster and the adjustments that they made to the coaching staff, including, by the way, Mike Tomlin getting a 3-year extension today. I have the Titans on this list. The Texans, the Commies, who, of course, are the Washington football team, formerly known as the Washington football team. The Dolphins, the Seahawks, the Panthers, and the Bears. So there's some bad football teams on there. Namely, the Titans, the Commies, the Panthers, and the Bears. Pittsburgh, you could probably go either way on. They're an average team, though they are a winning franchise and did make the postseason last year. But of the teams that are on this list, we have 2 that would be considered legitimate Super Bowl contenders in Texans and Dolphins. We have 1 who is, or rather 2, I think, that are good enough that they shouldn't be doubted in the Steelers and the Seahawks. We have, I would say, 3 ascending teams who have been bad but are looking like they might turn the corner, in the Bears, the Titans, and the Commies. And then we have the Panthers, who were just objectively stinky and could do no better or could do no worse than get better this offseason because, of course, they were the NFL's worst team in 2023. So how I've stacked these teams, I'll get to here in just a second, but I am curious to know who you think had the best offseason in the comment section. There's reasons, and I see a lot of you nominating the Titans, understandably so. Titans had an exciting offseason. I know there's a lot of people externally that aren't buying all the moves that the Titans made. I know a lot of Titans fans have some legitimate buy-in. I would probably say majority of Titans fans are bought into the direction that this team is taking, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the question is, among the best NFL off seasons, who improved the most from what their baseline was when the season ended for most of these teams who didn't make the postseason back in mid-January? We'll get to that here in just a second. But again, the teams that I have, the Steelers in no particular order, Steelers, Titans, Texans, Commies, Dolphins, Seahawks, Panthers, Bears. Those are my 8 teams that I think had a good to great offseason, depending on how we'll stack them. We'll stack them here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime program is presented by the wonderful people at Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, get up to $100 on your no-danger first wager. Terms and conditions do apply. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet at zensports.com. So, looking at the teams that I have ranked here, the Texans, to me, had the best offseason. The Texans had the best team. They did the most work to improve the best team on that list of teams that I gave you, at least of the teams that I ranked. You may have other teams on there who you think deserve consideration. But the Texans maximizing the window around the cost-effective rookie quarterback, the trade for Stephon Diggs, the addition of Danielle Hunter and guys like Danico Autry and Azeez Al-Shaair, the draft class, which only supported their cause, and a young, really talented group of players, either in their coming into their second or third year, that are going to, I think, push this team over the top. I think the Texans are the best team of this 8-team group that I have, and I believe they had the best offseason from where they started, even though you might say, well, they won the division, they won a playoff game last year. How much better are they actually going to get? they may not finish better in the standings. In fact, I would expect them to have a bit of a regression, given that they'll play a first-place schedule. And last year, we're playing a worst-place schedule, which is what the Titans have in their favor this year. But I do like the Texans offseason for a great many reasons. I like DeMeco Ryans, and I obviously think a lot of C.J. Stroud. Second on my list would be the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears drafted with the number 1 overall pick because they had it from the Carolina Panthers, Caleb Williams, who comes into the best situation that a number 1 overall pick has ever had in the history of professional football. I do believe that. The roster is legitimately good. The coaching staff, there are some questions. Matt Eberflus is not any kind of, I think if they have any kind of 2 or 3 game skid, the discussions will start in Chicago. If you don't see Caleb Williams take meaningful steps in his rookie year with a defensive-minded head coach, I'm sure that you can expect that kind of discussion. But I do like the draft pick coupled with the team that they already had in place, in addition to everything that they added in the offseason, and did it with a tremendous amount of cap space. They still have some flexibility to make some moves. They did clear a ton of cap space this offseason as well. Third on my list of 8 teams, I'd rank the Dolphins. Now, they did do things like give Aaron Brewer $7 million a year, which I thought was crazy. But they do keep the NFL's best wide receiving core. In fact, they upgrade it with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and they add Odell Beckham Jr. in there to be their 3. Speed and space is going to be the theme of this Dolphins offense again. I like their backfield with Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. They add Jalen Wright from the University of Tennessee, who you feel pretty good about. They lose Christian Wilkins in the offseason. They lose 2 of their 5 starting offensive linemen, who they did replace this offseason via the draft. But there is a lot to like about the Dolphins. I think they're paper tigers a little bit on a list of teams, though, of 8 who had to improve. I think they didn't get appreciably worse. There are identifiable spots where they got better. And to me, if you're a Super Bowl contender and you find any meaningful way to improve at a cost-effective rate, and remember, they still haven't paid their quarterback famously in Tua yet. I think because they haven't given Tua a fat new deal, I'm inclined to like their offseason more. But I think that Tua is going to end up getting paid in Miami. I just, think he's going to be a little antsy while he sits there and waits it out. So, though that is the top 3 in terms of my teams that had the best off season, I would put the Pittsburgh Steelers 4th on this list because I like the moves that they made. It's tough to reset your quarterback room the way that they did, but they found a way to do it in the most financially viable way. Justin Fields for a 6th-round pick on an expiring contract. Russell Wilson for veteran minimum, so you're not married to him at all. You bring in Arthur Smith with a decent collection of skill position players. The Steelers are not bad. Even though they traded away Deontay Johnson in the offseason, they do still have a pretty talented collection of skill players. Their offensive line got some much-needed depth in this year's draft, and they add Arthur Smith, who I'm down on as a head coach, but still promising as an offensive coordinator. I think he's going to be creative there. And then we get to the Titans, who fall in 5th place on my list of 8 teams with the moves that they made. They have Will Levis. They changed the coaching staff out. A lot of unproven commodities in leading roles, but a great supporting cast behind them in Brian Callahan and Denard Wilson, both in operating in their respective positions for the first time. Nick Holtz, I suppose, is included in this discussion as well, but there is a ton of veteran knowledge and experience on their coaching staff behind them. The roster that they inherit, bottom 3 in the NFL coming into this offseason period, bottom 4, maybe bottom 5 if you wanted to advocate and be a homer, because I do like what your 2023 draft class, at least rounds 1 through 3, were able to provide. Remember, they didn't have a 4th-round pick, and they took Josh Wiley, who's still a big old question mark, in the 5th round. I do like their draft. I think it's solid, not sexy. I don't love that there are any number of question marks around T'Vondre Sweat, and I didn't love the fact that they stuck and picked there, even though they had a pretty nice offer from the Rams, least of which I know they got calls from several other teams as well, but I know specifically the package that Los Angeles was offering would make me think twice about T'Vondre Sweat. They bring in Calvin Ridley, whose deal looks great in retrospect with the Justin Jefferson contracts and all the other wide receiver deals that have been given out this offseason. The most important offseason acquisition that they made is Bill Callahan. And the second most important offseason acquisition that they made was a center in Lloyd Cushenberry. So I like the Titans offseason. I think that when you spend top dollar on players who have been average to slightly above in their careers, I'm going to knock you slightly for it. But the thing about the Titans is, and we've talked about this before, they didn't have average to slightly above average players on their roster worth paying. You have to overpay. I've talked about this before. It's the we suck luxury tax, and God knows the Titans paid it through the nose. Top of market deals at a lot of different positions. Not top of market at the wide receiver spot, but I think anybody would argue that the Titans made the top of market deal for a tier 2 wide receiver in Calvin Ridley. They bring in Tony Pollard to work with Tajay Spears in replacing Derrick Henry. I am pro replacing Derrick Henry, letting him walk in free agency. I thought that was the right decision. I like that they are checking a lot of boxes. The thing about the Titans that just has me keeping my powder dry, as Coach Mack would say, is the fact that there's a lot of unknown commodities in leading roles, like I said. Brian Callahan has never been an NFL head coach before. I don't know that he's going to be bad. I don't know that he's going to be good. He may be perfectly average. We'll find out throughout the course of his tenure here, however long that takes. I may not have an opinion on that until his career is done at whatever point in the future, near or far, that ends up happening. I think we'll talk about those things in different terms. We talked about Mike Vrabel a lot differently at the start than we did at the end. We talked about John Robinson a lot differently at the start than we did at the end. I'm sure Callahan and Carthon will be no different. Denard Wilson, who I like a lot, who many people in the league, we've talked about this, were surprised that it took him this long to get a DC job. Still a number of unknowns as a defensive backs coach. Like the way that his players respond to him, like the way that his players respect him, but there are still some question marks. The level of investment made in specifically the players that they made, I'm looking forward to seeing the dividends in them because they gave L'Jarius Sneed a fat old contract, and that dude has yet to do more than a walkthrough at any point in the last couple of months of the offseason program. Not a concern yet, but it's worth monitoring.
The trade and signing of Snead moved the needle for you this year. I mean, that seems to be a very large piece to this equation.
Yeah, I mean, it helps us tremendously out from a coverage standpoint on the back end. And, you know, if you guys know Denard and what he wants to do, I think the guys that we signed in Cheeto and LJ, I think they both, you know, fit what he wants to do from a coverage standpoint. And then having Roger here. You know, Rodgers played outside, he's played inside, and so he fits as well. So it gives us, you know, a legitimate, you know, top 3 out of the gate, and we're going to continue to add guys. We're going to expect guys that were here last year to step up, you know, and earn those other spots. But we're bringing in scheme fits for what we're going to do defensively.
So, scheme fits. What's your scheme? Learning more about the scheme in the offseason. Not sold on it yet because we haven't seen it. We've seen it in practice, but I haven't seen it in practice, meaning live game action yet. I know what the Baltimore Ravens defense looks like. I know that they don't have a lot of players that the Baltimore Ravens had. I know they have some players that I like, and Jeff Simmons and Harold Landry, like Amani Hooker just fine. I don't have any reason to be down on Sweat other than he's not practicing. But he's not practicing, and so I don't consider Tavondre Sweat to be any kind of factor just yet, but I know that he could be. I'm not here to operate, though, in the promise of players, in the what's the word that I'm looking for? The potential. I've been talking about players with potential on the Tennessee Titans roster since 2020. And you know what? That potential has gotten them 7-10, 6-11, jack shit in the last couple of seasons. Potential is wildly overrated. I want to see what this looks like as a cohesive unit. There's no question that they've improved. There's no question that they've got talent. But I couldn't do better than 5th when I looked at the off seasons that these respective teams had, given the degree of difficulty of what they were trying to accomplish, where they finished last season, and how much better they actually got. I think there's a case for the Titans. I would hear the case for the Titans as high as 3rd on that list and as low as 5th. I don't think you could put them any lower than 5th, and I'd rather err on the side of caution. But I do like that they're checking a lot of the right boxes, and I would if I was a Titans fan as well. So let's move on. And because we're a little short on time here this evening, I am actually getting ready to run down to Marathon Music Works and present the high school sports awards, the Team of the Year award for men's and women's teams in 2020. I guess that would be 2023. Yeah, 2023. So I'm looking forward to that, and I have to put on a suit and get down there. So we're going to jump right to In Case You Missed It and remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the wonderful people at the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com. Get your dream address without the stress. The intel edge you need to succeed can only be found at GaryAshton.com. So, in case you missed it, what did you miss? Well, you're not going to get Bert live this week, but you will get Bert live this week.
Acapella. Here we go. What's my name again?
Jonathan Davis.
Can you introduce me as if I was like at
on
Bonnaroo?
Saturday Night Live?
Yeah. Like it's Saturday Night Live.
No, it's Bonnaroo week. Let's do it like he's the headliner. He's headlining Saturday night at Bonnaroo.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Davis.
Sometimes I cannot take this place. Sometimes it's my life I can taste. Sometimes I cannot feel my face. You'll never see me fall from grace. Something takes a part of me. You and I were meant to be. A cheap buck for me to lay. Something takes a part of me. Feeling like a freak on a leash. You wanna see the light? Feeling like I have no release. 'Cause so do I. How many times have I felt diseased? You wanna see the light? Nothing in life is free. It's free. Ow!
Yeah!
Wow!
That might have single-handedly been the worst 2 minutes of radio in the history of 104.5 The Zone. There are people in Paris, Tennessee looking around being like, what the hell?
That was Robert Walsh dressed as Jonathan Davis, the lead singer of Korn, because he lost a bet to me, to the Evansville Purple Aces, who went on to lose to the University of Tennessee and the Volunteers so that they could advance to Omaha in the College World Series. But that's okay. I fought the battle. I lost the war, but I won the battle, and the battle was good enough for today. And today, the battle was won over Bert, and many, many more bets to come. I'm sure he will embarrass himself in many, many more punishments that he has to subject himself to. I'm sure that it will happen to me at some point because karma is the worst. But for today, this was a victory for us. It was a victory for mankind. And any day when Bert loses, we all win. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight on the Primetime program. I'm off to the Middle Tennessee High School Sports Awards, which I'm looking forward to presenting Team of the Year for the girls and the boys. It's going to be a great night. Grant Williams is apparently also a guest presenter, VFL, so I'm looking forward to meeting Grant. Haven't had the opportunity to catch up with him yet. Maybe we'll see if we can't get him on the radio show in the near future. Speaking of the radio show, we are at Titans, the final day of Titans OTAs, the final day of the Titans offseason program tomorrow. Will be interesting to see what Brian Callahan and the players have to say. We will look forward to the dark times with you because don't go anywhere. We've got a lot of great Titans coverage coming for you all summer long. Don't you worry. I will talk to you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone. See y'all.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville. Go home!